"Who are you and what do you want?" "I am Joseph of Arimathea," he replied, "and I come to ask permission to bury Jesus of Nazareth." I granted him permission and instructed Melius to take some soldiers to ensure the body wouldn't be violated. A few days later, the tomb was found empty, and the disciples began to say that Jesus had risen just as he had foretold. This caused even more commotion than his death itself. I cannot say for certain what truly happened, but I thoroughly investigated the matter. You can check personally and decide if I made any mistakes, as Herod claims. Joseph used his own tomb to bury Jesus, but I cannot guarantee whether he knew or had something planned regarding the resurrection. The day after the burial, a priest came to the praetorium worried that the disciples might steal Jesus' body and make it seem like he had risen, as he had predicted, and as they strongly believed. I directed the priest to the captain of the guard, Marcus, and ordered him to place as many Jewish soldiers as necessary around the tomb, so that if anything happened, the responsibility would fall on them and not on the Romans. When I heard the news of the empty tomb, my concern grew. I spoke with Marcus, who told me he had assigned his lieutenant, Ben Isham, with 100 soldiers to guard the site. He reported that Isham and his men were terrified by the events of that morning. I called for Isham, who recounted as faithfully as possible what happened. He said that around the fourth watch, a soft, enchanting light appeared over the tomb. At first, he thought it was women who had come to embalm Jesus' body, as was the custom, but he didn't understand how they could have passed through the guards. As he pondered this, the entire place was illuminated, and he saw what seemed like a multitude of the dead in their burial shrouds, all appearing younger and full of joy, while a heavenly music, the most beautiful he had ever heard, filled the air. It felt as though the entire sky was praising God. Suddenly, the earth began to shake violently, and he felt weak, unable to stand, as if the ground was moving beneath his feet, and then he fainted, not knowing what happened after that. I asked him how he was when he came to. He said he was lying on the ground, face down. I questioned if he might have mistaken the light he saw for the sunrise in the east. He replied that at first, he thought so too, but at a short distance it was still quite dark, and he remembered it was too early for the sun to rise. I asked if the dizziness he felt could have been from standing up too quickly, which sometimes causes that sensation. He denied it, explaining that he hadn't slept all night, as sleeping during duty was punishable by death. He mentioned that he had allowed some soldiers to sleep at that time and that some were still asleep. I asked how long the scene lasted. He said he wasn't sure but thought it was nearly an hour until the daylight overshadowed it. I asked if he had gone to the tomb after regaining his composure. He responded that he hadn't, as he was afraid, and as soon as reinforcements arrived, they all returned to the barracks. I asked if the priests had questioned him. He confirmed, saying that the priests wanted him to claim it was an earthquake and that the guards had been sleeping. They offered him money to say that the disciples had come and stolen Jesus' body, but he said he didn't see any disciples and only learned of the body's disappearance when he was told. I asked him about the personal opinions of the priests he spoke with, and he told me that some believed Jesus was not an ordinary man, not a human being like others, and that he wasn't the Son of Mary as many thought. In their view, he was a figure who had already appeared on earth in other times, such as in the days of Abraham and Lot, and on various other occasions and places. If this Jewish theory is correct, these conclusions seem to make sense, as they align with what we know about the life of this man. Both friends and enemies acknowledged that Jesus seemed to have control over the elements, as if he were a potter shaping clay. He turned water into wine, healed diseases, raised the dead, calmed storms, and even made fish appear with coins in their mouths. If he truly performed all these acts, and many others, as witnessed by the Jews themselves, and it was precisely for these reasons that he stirred up so much hostility, it is clear that he wasn't accused of common crimes, of breaking laws, or of directly harming anyone. These deeds are known by thousands of people, both supporters and opponents. I'm inclined to believe, as someone said at the cross, truly, this was the Son of God. Pontius Pilate described Jesus as an impressive figure, distinct from any other. He mentioned that Jesus had an average height, with a calm demeanor and a serene presence that drew the attention of everyone around him. His face conveyed a sense of kindness and peace, even in the most tense situations, and his expression always reflected tranquility. Jesus seemed to look at people with deep compassion, as if he understood them in a unique and complete way. Accounts say that Jesus had long, soft hair that fell harmoniously over his shoulders. His hair was slightly wavy and described as light brown, almost blonde, which set him apart from the people of the region. His eyes were perhaps his most remarkable feature, described as deep and piercing. Some said they varied between light brown and blue, depending on the observer's perspective. His eyes conveyed wisdom and kindness, while also showing a firmness that seemed to understand life and the human heart profoundly. Jesus' skin was described as fair, with a smooth texture, like someone who spent time outdoors but still maintained a healthy and well-kept appearance. His face was considered beautiful and symmetrical, with features that inspired confidence and respect. It wasn't just any face, but one that projected authority without appearing intimidating or threatening. He wore a full, well-groomed beard, which added a touch of maturity and respect to his appearance. Jesus dressed simply, but always with dignity. His clothes, though modest, were always clean and typically consisted of a long robe and a tunic. He did not wear flashy adornments or jewelry, reflecting his detachment from material possessions. His appearance conveyed a message of humility and simplicity, even with his striking presence. Without needing to speak, he could transmit a sense of peace and welcome. Now, noble sovereign, this is the most accurate account I can provide of the events. I have made every effort to present all the details so that you may judge my conduct fairly, knowing that much criticism has been directed at me in this matter. With loyalty and respect to my sovereign, I remain your most obedient servant.